This is a story about a proud and pompous girl born in the heart of Accra called Adiepena. Adiepena had never known struggle. She was born into a well-off family in Accra, the kind that never worried about water shortages, power outages, or school fees. While other children carried heavy buckets of water on their heads at dawn, Adiepena woke up to the sound of running tap water in their modern 3-bedroom house in Trasacco. Her father, Mr. Kwame Hagie, was a businessman, though no one really knew what he did. He was one of those men who wore silk shirts, gold chains, and expensive cologne, always talking in hushed tones on his phone about deals. Whatever these deals were, they paid well because Adiepena and her siblings never lacked anything. Her mother, Madame Rose Aguiyi, was a socialite, a woman who spent more time at expensive beauty spas than in her own kitchen. She wore the latest lace from Dubai, changed wigs every week, and had a personal tailor who made sure no one else in the neighborhood dressed like her. From the moment Adiepena could walk, she was treated like royalty. She had housemaids to clean her room, wash her clothes, and cook her favorite meals. She never ate yesterday's food. Everything was freshly made. If she wanted fried rice at midnight, it was prepared without question. If she stained her dress, it was washed and ironed before she even asked. Her wardrobe was filled with designer dresses, imported handbags, and perfumes from France. She had more shoes than she could wear, some of them still sitting in boxes, untouched, while other girls braided their own hair or begged their mothers for salon money. Adiepena's hair was professionally done every weekend. She never repeated a hairstyle for more than 2 weeks. Her life was so different from the rest of us. When we rushed to the roadside to buy wake in the mornings, she sat at a dining table and ate pancakes, eggs, and sausages. When we walked long distances to school, dust sticking to our sweaty bodies, Adiepena was dropped off by a driver in an air-conditioned car. While we learned how to cook and clean, Adiepena learned how to pose for pictures, how to angle her face for selfies, and how to choose the perfect filter for Instagram. She had never washed a plate, never swept a room, never touched a broom, and she made sure everyone knew it. "I was not born to suffer," she always said, flipping her hair over her shoulder. Her beauty only made things easier for her. Men, young and old, practically worshipped her. They flooded her inbox with money offers, gifts, and expensive dates. Some promised cars, others offered trips abroad. She never paid for her own phone credit. There was always someone willing to send her Momo. She never carried heavy bags or did anything that required effort. Boys were always ready to carry her books, open doors for her, and buy her anything she wanted. Life had taught her one thing: beauty opens all doors, and she believed it with her whole heart. She believed that no matter where she went, no matter what she wanted, someone would always make things easy for her. She believed she was special. She believed the world owed her comfort. She always said one day a rich man would marry her and she would never have to struggle like the rest of us. And that belief was about to be tested in the most terrifying way possible. While the rest of us woke up at dawn to help our mothers sweep the compound or sell in the market, Adiepena would sleep until noon, only waking up when the smell of breakfast reached her room. She spent her day scrolling through Instagram, making fun of girls who didn't have fancy wigs or expensive shoes. And she had one phrase she loved the most: beauty opens all doors. She walked like the streets belonged to her, shoulders back, chin high, as if the ground itself was honored to feel the weight of her designer sandals. Her presence demanded attention. When she entered a room, heads turned. When she laughed, people listened. And when she spoke, she made sure everyone knew that she was different from the rest of us. She never waited in line. Waiting was for poor people. If she went to buy food and saw a queue, she would roll her eyes, toss her braids over her shoulder, and walk straight to the front. If anyone dared to complain, she would fix them with a sharp glare and say, "Do you know who I am?" She carried herself like someone who belonged to another world, a world where money solved everything and people existed to make her life easier. She never once touched a broom, never entered the kitchen to help her mother prepare a meal. If a plate broke in the house, she simply stepped over the pieces and called the maid to clean it up. She was the kind of girl who could sit in the living room while her own mother was sweating over a pot of soup in the kitchen and not feel a single ounce of shame, because to Adiepena, life was about looks, status, and validation. She spent her days scrolling through Instagram, tapping through the lives of celebrities, influencers, and socialites. She knew all the trends before they even became popular. She followed rich wives who flaunted their vacations in Dubai. She liked the photos of models draped in gold, stepping out of expensive cars. And she was convinced, completely convinced, that she was one of them. She was not like us, the girls who braided our own hair, the girls who wore second-hand clothes from Cantamanto markets. No, Adiepena only wore boutique outfits, and her hair was always done at the most expensive salons in East Legon. She never repeated a wig for more than 2 weeks. She had custom-made press-on nails for every outfit. She believed that if you weren't slaying, you were suffering. She had no patience for struggle, no respect for hard work, and she would often repeat her favorite phrase, "Beauty opens all doors." She said it like a fact, like a law of the universe, and maybe for a while she was right, until one day, the door she opened was one she couldn't close. One afternoon, Adiepena came to us, grinning like she had just won the lottery. She looked different, excited, almost breathless, as if she had just discovered some great secret. Her phone was clutched tightly in her manicured fingers. Her freshly glossed lips curled into a warm, mischievous smile. "I have found a job," she announced. We laughed. Adiepena? Work? Impossible. We had never seen Adiepena lift a finger for anything. She didn't even pour her own drinking water. Someone always did it for her. I folded my arms. "Since when do you need a job?" She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, not that kind of job. This one is special." Her voice dropped like she was about to tell us something too exclusive for common ears. A rich woman in cantonments needs someone to help her pick dresses for her boutique. I will only work 3 days a week, and she will pay me 5,000 cedis a month. I frowned. That sounded too good to be true. "What exactly will you be doing?" another girl asked. Adiepena flipped her braids over her shoulder, helping her choose styles. "So, you're going to be a sales girl?" I asked. Adiepena scoffed. "Sales girl? No, I will just help her choose outfits." She says she wants someone with taste. Something about the whole thing felt off. Adiepena had never worked a day in her life, never had to, and suddenly some random rich woman wanted to pay her that much money just for choosing clothes. "How did you even get this job?" I pressed. "She found me online," Adiepena said with a shrug. "She saw my pictures on Instagram and messaged me. She said I look like I have great fashion sense and that I'd be perfect for the job." I looked at the other girls. None of us were convinced. "You've never met her before?" I asked. Adiepena sighed loudly, as if we were being annoying. "I'm meeting her tomorrow for the first time. I'll be fine. Some of us are just destined for greater things." She smiled to herself as she could already see her future. Shopping trips, designer clothes, first-class flights. "This is it," she said, her voice dreamy. This is my chance to start living like I deserve. But not everything that glitters is gold. Contrary to our advice, Adiepena went to meet the old lady. That night, my phone rang just as I was getting into bed. I looked at the screen. Adiepena. I almost ignored it. Adiepena never called me at night. If she had something to say, she would have just sent a voice note. I answered, "Hello." There was silence for a moment. Then Adiepena whispered, "I met the woman today." Something in her voice made my skin crawl. I sat up. "Okay, and?" "She's old. Very old. And she wears a red cloth over her head." A strange feeling settled in my stomach. "She never lifted the cloth?" I asked. Adiepena hesitated. "No." I frowned. "But how did you talk to her? How did you see her face?" "I didn't," Adiepena murmured. She never showed it. A chill ran down my spine. Everything about this felt wrong. Adiepena inhaled shakily. She asked me strange questions. My grip tightened on my phone. What kind of questions? She asked if I had ever worked hard in my life. I already knew what Adiepena had answered before she said it. I told her no, of course not. She laughed and said, "Good, then you will learn." I shivered. "Adiepena, maybe you shouldn't." "Oh, please." She forced a laugh, but it sounded nervous. "This is the easiest money I will ever make." But her voice didn't sound as confident as usual. The next morning, everything changed. I was still half asleep when I heard loud knocking on my door. It was Adiepena's mother. Her hair was undone, a wrapper loosely tied around her waist. I had never seen her look so frantic. "Have you seen Adiepena?" she cried. "She didn't come home last night." A sharp fear stabbed through me. Adiepena never spent the night out, not without bragging about it first. If she had gone to see a man, she would have told someone. She loved attention too much to leave without making sure we all knew where she was going. We searched everywhere, the market, the salon, the shops, nothing. Hours passed. Adiepena was nowhere. Then someone muttered, "What about the old woman?" We froze. We hadn't thought of that. But something inside me knew. Adiepena had gone back to her. By the time we reached the address she had given us, the sun had set. The city had grown quiet. We found the house easily. It was the only one that looked wrong. A sagging, broken down building at the very edge of the neighborhood, squeezed between two modern apartments. The moment we arrived, we felt it. Something was wrong. The air was thick, heavy, like it was pressing down on us. We stepped closer. Then we saw them. Adiepena sandals, neatly placed at the doorstep, side by side. I swallowed. I bent down and touched them. They were warm. "She was here," I whispered. But the worst part, the footprint, a trail of bare feet leading inside the house. But they weren't normal footprints. They were too deep, too long, almost dragging, like someone had been pulled. We called her name, no answer. Then, her voice, low, scratchy, too deep for a woman. "She is learning." I froze. The voice came from inside the house, but there was no one there. Then, the door slammed shut. We ran. For weeks, Adiepena was gone. Her parents searched, the police searched, no one found anything. Then one day, I saw her. I was at the market buying tomatoes when I noticed a woman bent over a pile of yams. Her hands were dark with dirt. Her once soft skin was cracked and rough. She wore a torn cloth around her waist, and her hair, her long, beautiful braids, was gone. I almost walked past her. Then she turned. It was Adiepena. Her eyes were wide, haunted, and when she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I have learned. She wouldn't say more. She only took her yams and walked away. The next day, we went back to the house, but it was gone. Not abandoned, gone. like it had never existed, but in the dust where the door had been, someone had written something. Beauty fades, but hard work remains. Adiepena never spoke of what happened. She woke up early. She helped her mother in the kitchen. And the strangest thing, she never looked in the mirror again. We were all happy because she had changed. Or well, so we thought. Adiepena had returned from whatever place had changed her, but life had not stopped for everyone else. The rumors spread fast. Some whispered that she had been cursed. Others believed she had gone mad. But Adiepena didn't speak of what happened. She simply went about her days, quieter than before, avoiding mirrors and keeping to herself. But then, something unexpected happened. One day, while walking through Makola Market, Adiepena caught the attention of Kester Quartey. Kester Quartey was everything a woman could ever dream of. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark-skinned, with sharp, regal features. He had the kind of wealth that didn't need to be announced. It spoke for itself in the quiet way he carried himself, in the luxury car he drove, and in the business empire he built from scratch. A man like him could have any woman he wanted, but for some reason he chose Adiepena. Perhaps it was her beauty, or maybe it was the air of mystery around her. Something about her drew him in, and when he approached her, something in her heart shifted too. She had never truly loved a man before, but Kester was different. He wasn't just rich, he was wise, gentle, and kind, the type of man who could tame a storm. And so their love began. For months, they were inseparable. From the moment Kester Quartey laid eyes on Adiepena, he was a man undone. She was breathtaking, the kind of woman who turned heads without trying. Her confidence, the way she walked, the way she smiled, it all intoxicated him. And Adiepena, she had never met a man quite like Kester. Unlike the flashy playboy she was used to, Kester was different. He was composed, intelligent, and had the kind of quiet power that made people respect him. He didn't just throw money around to impress her. He studied her, he listened, he made her feel important in ways she had never experienced before. And he was rich, but he carried his wealth with grace, not arrogance. Everywhere they went, people whispered, "Power couple." They looked perfect together. The rich, powerful businessman and the stunning, sophisticated woman who seemed born to be by his side. Adiepena basked in it. The expensive dates, the shopping sprees, the attention from people who once doubted her worth. Kester spoiled her without question. If she wanted a designer dress, she got it. If she wanted a weekend at a 5-star resort, he made it happen. Adiepena felt invincible. But even in the midst of all this, the red flags were there. Kester saw them. At first, they were small things that should have made him pause, like the time they traveled to Dubai, and Adiepena refused to pack her own suitcase. "I don't do that," she said, tossing her hair. "That's what assistants are for." So Kester packed for her. Or the time he invited her to his mother's house for dinner, and Adiepena spent the whole evening scrolling through her phone, barely greeting his family. "They should be happy I even came," she had said afterward, rolling her eyes. And then there was the cooking incident. Kester loved home-cooked meals. He didn't expect Adiepena to be a master chef, but he at least thought she would try. One evening, he playfully suggested, "Babe, why don't we cook something together?" Adiepena laughed in his face. "Me? Cook? For what? You better hire a chef." He brushed it aside. She just wasn't raised that way, he told himself. She'll learn. But deep down, a small voice whispered, "Will she?" And yet, despite these warnings, he stayed. Because when Adiepena wanted to, she could be sweet, charming, and affectionate. She would send him long texts about how much she loved him. She would dress up just for him, whispering, "I only want to look good for you." And when they were out together, she made him feel like the most important man in the world. It was enough to make him ignore the doubt. She'll change after marriage, he told himself. And so, despite the whispers in the back of his mind, despite the obvious signs, Kester put a ring on her finger. He believed that love could fix anything. He was wrong. The wedding was nothing short of grand. People talked about it for weeks. Adiepena had always dreamed of a fairy tale wedding, and Kester gave her exactly that. The venue? A five-star hotel ballroom in the heart of Accra. The decor? Imported roses, chandeliers dripping with gold, and silk-covered chairs. Her dress? Handmade by a top designer in Paris, flown in just for her. It was the kind of wedding people envied. Adiepena basked in the attention, twirling in her gown, posing for cameras, soaking in the compliments. She had made it. She was Mrs. Kester Quartey, and for a while it seemed perfect. They spent their honeymoon in the Maldives, where she posted endless pictures of herself lounging by infinity pools, sipping cocktails, wrapped in designer kaftans. Kester was madly in love, still caught up in the whirlwind of it all. But then, reality set in. The first morning after they moved into their mansion, Kester woke up to an empty bed. He expected to find Adiepena in the kitchen, maybe making coffee or arranging something in their new home. Instead, he found her in the living room, stretched out on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She hadn't even brushed her teeth yet. "Good morning, babe," he greeted her, kissing her forehead. She barely looked up. He tried not to let it bother him. The first few days of marriage were an adjustment after all, but as days turned into weeks, the cracks began to show. Adiepena's routine remained unchanged. She slept until noon. She barely lifted a finger around the house. When Kester left for work, the house was already messy, but when he returned, it was worse. Plates stacked in the sink, shoes scattered across the floor, clothes tossed carelessly on the couch. And Adiepena, she was always on her phone, always planning her next outing, always shopping online. At first, Kester joked about it. "Babe, I know you're a queen, but queens still know how to clean their palaces." She would laugh, wave her hand dismissively, and say, "That's what maids are for." He sighed but said nothing. Then, one evening he came home after a long day and found her lying in bed, face buried in her phone, the room in complete disarray. He looked around. There were used plates on the bedside table, clothes crumpled on the floor, an empty bottle of juice lying sideways on the dresser. And that was just the bedroom. The rest of the house was a disaster. He closed his eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, then asked, "Adiepena, what have you been doing all day?" She looked up offended. "What do you mean?" He clenched his jaw. "The house is a mess." She rolled her eyes. "And if it bothers you, clean it." He stared at her. She wasn't joking. She truly didn't care. Something inside him snapped that day. He didn't yell. He didn't argue. He simply picked up his car keys and left. From that day on, Kester started seeing his wife differently. Everything about her that he once adored now irritated him. The way she ignored responsibilities, the way she expected things to be done for her. One evening, he tried to have a serious conversation with her. "Adiepena, I need you to understand something. A home is built on partnership. I'm not asking you to be a maid, but at least make an effort." Adiepena groaned. "Kester, you knew who I was when you married me. If you wanted a housewife, you should have married one." He felt his blood boil. "That's not the point, Adiepena. Marriage is about teamwork. I go out there and work to provide, and you can at least make this house feel like a home." Adiepena's voice was cold. "I married you to be your wife, not your maid. If you don't like it, hire someone." That was the first night he slept on the couch. Kester was raised traditionally. He believed in self-sufficiency. In a home where the husband and wife built a life together, he didn't believe in hiring maids. His mother had taught him that a home should be managed by those who lived in it. But Adiepena had left him no choice. The final straw came when he invited his business associates over for dinner. It was a big deal, a meeting that could open doors for his company. Adiepena had promised to set the house up nicely. Instead, when he returned home with his guests, he walked into chaos. The living room looked like a tornado had passed through it. Used plates sat on the coffee table, half-eaten food lay uncovered, and Adiepena, she was on the couch watching TV, completely unbothered. Kester wanted to sink into the ground from embarrassment. His guest looked around awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable. He clenched his fist, forced a tight smile, and sent them away. Then he turned to Adiepena. What the hell was that? She barely looked up. Relax, it's just a little mess. Kester saw red. Adiepena, I have been patient with you. I have asked nicely. I have tried to understand you. But this is disrespect. Adiepena sighed dramatically. If it bothers you so much, why don't you get a maid? And that was it. That was the exact moment Kester realized. He had made a mistake. Kester didn't have a choice. He hired a maid. Her name was Naana. And unlike Adiepena, she was humble, hardworking, and kind. She cooked his meals before he even asked. She kept the house spotless. She respected him. At first, Kester thought nothing of it. But the more he saw Naana, the more he realized what he had been missing. She was simple but graceful, not flashy, but effortlessly beautiful. And most importantly, she had character. Slowly, something changed. It was the way she smiled when he thanked her, the way she listened when he spoke, the way she never demanded anything, yet gave so much. Well, that was part of her work description anyway, he thought, but it was how diligent she was that captivated him. One evening, as he watched Naana carefully set the dinner table, something in his heart shifted. He had spent his whole life chasing beauty, but for the first time, he saw the value of character, and he knew, for months, he had been fighting with his wife, begging her to care. But here was a woman who did everything willingly, a woman who made him feel valued, and that was how it began. He had married the wrong woman. The day Kester sent Adiepena back to her family was quiet. There was no fight, no screaming, no last-minute pleas, just silence. Kester had already checked out of the marriage long before that day arrived. He had spent months hoping she would change, weeks debating whether he should leave, and days preparing himself for the moment he would say goodbye. By the time he finally did, his heart felt nothing. Adiepena, on the other hand, was shocked, not because she thought their marriage was perfect, but because she had never imagined Kester would actually leave her. Men didn't leave her. Men worshipped her. Men forgave her flaws, overlooked her attitude, and begged for her attention. But not Kester. Not anymore. When he handed her the divorce papers, she stared at them for a long time, as if her eyes could change the words on the page. This is a joke, right? She scoffed, flipping her braids over her shoulder. Kester's expression was calm, but his voice was firm. No, Adiepena, it's over. She let out a cold laugh, crossing her arms. You think you can do better than me? Kester sighed. I already have. That hit her like a slap. Adiepena's pride refused to let her beg. So instead, she lifted her chin, packed her designer clothes, threw her expensive wig into a suitcase, and walked out with her head held high. She had lost her husband, but she refused to admit defeat. As far as she was concerned, it was his loss. He would regret it. He would miss her. He would come crawling back. At least that's what she told herself. But the world had changed, and for the first time, she wasn't at the center of it. Adiepena had once believed that her beauty was enough, that no matter what, she would always have options. But when she re-entered the dating scene, reality hit her like a brick wall. The men who once worshipped her had moved on. They were no longer chasing flashy, high-maintenance women who only cared about looks and luxury. They were marrying women like Naana, women who knew how to build homes, not just decorate them, women who knew the value of respect, kindness, and hard work. Adiepena tried to go back to the life she knew, dinners at expensive restaurants, traveling, partying with her equally glamorous friends. But something had changed. The attention wasn't the same, the invitations slowed down, and the men who once bent over backward for her were now choosing other women who brought more to the table than just beauty. The men still admired her, of course, they still complimented her, but they weren't proposing, they weren't offering commitment, because men like Kester had learned the truth. A pretty face means nothing if the heart behind it is empty. And as for Kester, he married Naana. It wasn't a lavish wedding, just a simple ceremony filled with love, respect, and laughter. There were no imported roses, no silk-covered chairs, no overpriced designers, just family, close friends, and a love built on something deeper than appearances. Naana wasn't as flashy as Adiepena. She didn't wear the most expensive clothes or spend hours perfecting her makeup, but she had something Adiepena never did: substance. She understood Kester. She appreciated him. She built a home with him, not just a house filled with expensive furniture. And for the first time in his life, Kester was truly happy. He woke up to the smell of breakfast cooking. He came home to a peaceful, welcoming environment. His life was balanced, simple, and complete. He had spent years chasing a woman who looked perfect on the outside. Now, he had married a woman who was perfect where it mattered. Adiepena once believed that beauty opens all doors, and for a while it did. But she had learned the hard way that beauty alone isn't enough, because beauty fades, but character stays. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed the story and learned something new. If you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more amazing tales from the heart of Africa. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an adventure. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep the spirit of storytelling alive. See you in the next video. Bye.